Ms. Sharon Gary Smith, president of the Portland NAACP. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. I told you I'm a little bit cold. It's bright and chilly outside, but I anticipate a warm interview and I'm glad to be here with you.
Awesome. And I'm glad to have you. So yeah, as we kind of talked about offline, this is a discussion about Lloyd Center, both, the past, your experience in it, as well as the present. But one thing I like to ask the interviewers just to start off is, what does Lloyd Center mean to you?
I'm the eldest of the four little Gary girls who are all grown and older now. And when Lloyd Center opened, we lived in Southeast Portland, pushed out of the lower Albina area by the city of Portland. So my parents bought where they said they won't come and bother us. And the first time that we were able to get on the bus and all, and then walk to Lloyd Center was so exciting, almost ceremonial. I'm holding the hands of my sisters, and there are all these stores, and there's, the ice rink, and we were skaters. So the ice rink, there was the caramel corn. I mean, there was so much energy. There was so much excitement for us being in Southeast now. We met our friends there. So all the young folks would be hanging out safely, kind of engaged in all of these activities. There was this bustling food court. So that was your weekend thing. That was the destination. It was the journey to get there. It was the connection. And it was in our community. There were lots of people of color, lots of Black folks all around Lloyd Center area. So it was meeting ground. It was cultural space. It certainly was a cool place to go on the weekend. Movie theater, arcade. I didn't even remember it. It was the gathering spot. It was a place to see and be seen, to shop, to play. It really mattered. A lot of my growing up and crossing that bridge over the ice rink to Meyer and Frank, and all of those things that I remember. And there's a loss of connection and community, and it was large enough to hold so many of us. And that.
How long has the NAACP been a tenant?
The tenancy started as, I think, when Lloyd Center's previous manager, who I knew and met, and who has moved to managing a mall in Texas, they, I think, wanted to kind of, at that place where tenants were leaving, when Nordstrom's left, which was a major blow, they were probably looking to kind of upgrade the image and create presence. And so it was a negotiated relationship with former president Joanne Hardesty, who's now our city commissioner, one of our city commissioners. And so it's been about 5 years. We came into it. The last president, Mondonay, was there. And so it's been this, we serve 2-year terms, so you can always run again. So we're entering probably around the 6th year of tenancy there. And our office, with the beautiful montage of NAACP history above the door, was really, people said we could see it from across on the other side. It was a real place that kind of drew people to find out about us. Now everything around us is vacant. Everything except for a foot massage, little small shop next door. The Marshalls was next door to us. Ulta Beauty, all of that is vacated on both sides. And so it's very stark statement of change.
Right. What has changed since NAACP started taking up residence in Lloyd Center? And you talk about kind of like just the businesses that are gone around you. Was there anything else that you could talk about as far as with the mall, as far as just like how things have changed over the last 5-6 years?
Well, the foot traffic. I mean, we used to, an example is this last holiday season, Christmas, Hanukkah, and all that, because being a tenant and watching the world go by, if you will, outside your glass windows, it's all glass front. There's so little foot traffic, but they held on, and, it's several levels. 2 levels are shops, enterprise, if you will, tenants. The top level is mainly more offices. We could have been located there, dentistry, the management offices, that kind of business setting. So you have 2 floors that now are so empty that there's no generation of regular foot traffic. People are not, they're walkers. People who are walking the mall, because now they're unobstructed. There's nothing to really distract you much. So it's quiet and it's deserted. I know that might challenge what the mall management would say, but that's a fact whenever I'm there. There's a loss of when there are people on each side of you, you go in and out of space, you learn your neighbors, other tenants. They've even referred people to us. Sometimes people are asking about, and we find out someone says, we asked about, we weren't sure where you were. And they told us just keep going down there. They're down there in the corner where Marshall's used to be the identifier. So there's a loss of neighborliness because there aren't very many neighbors. I think it was ideal suited commerce and then business kind of operations, dentists, tax. There was a way that you had community, and that's been lost. And it really changes the way people have to purposely come to see us, as opposed to wandering around doing other activities, shopping, groceries across the street. That's been lost. I like the space though. There was a purposefulness, I'm sure, in going there beyond giving them good public relations. And that's been lost as well.
Yeah, and speaking of community, like how's the NAACP able to, I guess, build community in that space? Like where was the office located prior to the Lloyd Center?
You know, I'm trying to remember. At the time they went into the office, they were meeting at the, I think it's called the Oregon chapter, the American Red Cross, right there on Vancouver, across Vancouver Avenue, First Baptist Church. When Joanne was elected, that's where for a year and a half or more, I used to attend the monthly membership meeting in a conference space that was provided at the American Red Cross. There was no defined location that belonged to us, an office. And I think the seeking of that was to resolve that situation, to have permanence, to have a place that people could come to that they knew belonged to the branch. And so that was a strategic, smart move. There were meetings held even all the way out at what used to be Concordia. And so this kind of finding space, which is good if you want to move around in community, but there was no sense of permanence, even though we're 104 years old this year.
And do you feel like by moving it to Lloyd Center that like it was successful in kind of making it, I guess, for lack of better terms, more accessible?
Accessible and identifiable. You weren't going into somebody's space and is the NAACP meeting here today? You know, that kind of questioning. We establish, almost put our flag in the ground, if you will, and we establish, and then the presence of the office. It's very attractive to see that front of our office and know that you're there. So those kinds of things really made a difference. Lloyd Center was really perfect. The access to parking, substantial parking right outside the door, which creates security. I think as a woman and a Black woman and an elder now, about what it takes to get from where you're dropped off or where you park into a building, and at night, that there's mall security, that the hours that the mall is open, you can be open. There were a lot of really good amenities, if you will, and benefits. Public transportation is regular, and there's several routes and the MAX that are very close to the mall. It really was a perfect setting. That's why it was perfect when it was our community.
Looking forward, what are some changes you would like to see to help revitalize the mall?
You know, when the community was pushed out and displaced and changed, then when the Lloyd sisters, you know, they held that land for a long time until they could get maximum development dollars, I'm sure. When all of this housing that's there now, all of these large complexes, very few of them are occupied by diverse populations. They're not regular visitors I've watched to the mall, because there's not a lot that's there now. Nordstrom's, Marshall's, you know, Sears, Penny's, whatever we think of those places, Macy's, that all of that is lost now, except for Macy's probably hanging on. So I'd like to see multiple use. Given the size of that space, I would like to see tenants like us, which is community building, it's advocacy, it's, work outside the doors, but meeting and bringing people together inside. I would like to see certainly some amenities and some significant restorative and rehabilitative work. The mall is tired. We know that the last major work on it was the kind of facelifting the cover, but the mall itself, the offices and all, given the fact that there was that major transformer fire that shut down the mall for 3 weeks in the holiday season, I would like to think that they will actually retrofit it. And I know there have been plans and ideas over the years, everything from, a major jazz venue. They've tried to think of things to attract people back. I'd like to see a mix. I'd like to see a mix that would cause more diverse community members to be able to be comfortable, to feel that they're welcomed into this space. I would like to see a way for it. They could be learning centers. There's so much vacant space that I'd like to see, almost like library settings in the mall for reading and for, after school classes. I would like to see it live again, where people are coming and going with purpose. We are talking about doing educational sessions and doing things with young people where they get to practice their leadership. And we have been granted by the mall the management before the buyout. So we don't know, we're still negotiating. If we stay, which is a question also, Bruce, if we stay there, then we should be stakeholders in the decisions about the transformation, because we do have a history and a voice and a representation. We represent a lot of Black community and other community members. And so not to come to us with the plans are set, which is familiar, but we don't need to be inputters anymore. I tell people, I believe in being an influencer, that we can participate in the design, the creation of something new. I'd like mixed use. I think it would benefit them because people are going to Bridgeport. They're going to Clackamas Town Center. There's a reason when you look at how those were constructed. Lloyd Center is not a destination for shopping that it once was, and they didn't have the competition. So I'd like to see the housing that really is more representative of the community.
What questions do you have for the new management group? I know you talked earlier about, they kind of have a relationship before, but for the purposes of this interview.
Well, the Renaissance, the new management group has talked about give them an opportunity about 2 years to actually, I'm guessing, assess and then develop plans that are representative of the input. We haven't been asked, and they haven't been owners forever, but they've been in a relationship, negotiations to end up buying something go on for a long period of time. They've not asked, and we've got ideas and thinking, as we told the former management about the mall, that's what we do. We solicit, we gather input, we represent voices that are more varied than typically are able to participate in the decisions. This mall is in the community. That was our community. And so I would want them to ask us, I would want them to consider beyond typical, because this mall is right now a white elephant. And so I think that any ideas for creative usage should be thought about. There's a way to have mixed use in housing. There's a way to have learning pods or centers there. You can bring back the movie theater since we've lost it across the street. You have to go downtown to get to the movies, and downtown is struggling now. So how do you recapture the kind of destination space that people in the community surrounding it would be able to access and would be excited about? Not all of our ideas, I'm not saying you have to, but when you talk about trying to lock people into long-term lease, we've been in a 6-month extending it because we didn't know what was going to go on. I negotiated on behalf of the branch to reduce the rent significantly, because what are we paying for? And I think before they ask for long-term relationship, we have to, what they tell you, show me what you got and what you're thinking of, and let me participate and feel a sense of ownership in that. That's a different kind of relationship, not just landlord and tenant. And I think it would be helpful to them, and certainly helpful for those of us who might choose to remain.
Lastly, is there, anything else you'd like to share, be it about Lloyd Center or things directly, I guess, anything, other messages directly for the new management?
Well, all around Lloyd Center, it's no coincidence that everything from the Applebee's, I knew something was up when that Applebee's that was crowded all the time on the corner, that's the Halsey is how you enter where we are. When it disappeared, then the Fagans, beauty school, all of these changes were foreboding and telling me that something was happening in that area. And I don't know when or how or why, because I don't know what the management was thinking, but the clues have been there for the last 4 or 5 years. And how do you get ahead of? Or is Lloyd Center still a relevant destination when you have these thriving larger stores that are all under a particular mall that are providing people what, you got to give the people what the people want, how to listen to what the people want and discern if that's something you can deliver. That's what I would ask them, based upon the status of this mall and this area that is in transformation. How many more apartment complexes can you put up without things that could be offered in this large space? Or do you shut it down entirely, tear it down, and another high rise or something, or a series of them goes in its place? I think that it could be a place that is lively, that attracts people, families, young people, into that center of a space that will soon be nothing but apartment buildings, kind of dreary, kind of boring. I don't think that that's community.
Yeah. Ms. Sharon Gary Smith, thank you again for taking the time
Thank
this
you, Bruce.
afternoon.